I'm going to start getting into some more some metrics that are very clear and very specific. One of them is the idea of giving out a proportionate giving worksheet. And this is, I don't know if you're accustomed to seeing these sort of things, but it's essentially a chart that measures against one's family income and giving along various percentages. So whether it be 1% to 10%, 1% to 5%, it's a way that we can very well visualize the level of support that we're going to give to our church. And so one of the metrics that we consistently use in the Diocese of Toronto is the idea that an individual should try to achieve growth in their giving of 1% annually. So if you're giving $500 or $1,000, we're encouraging people to actually consider giving. If $1,000 was reflective of 1% of your giving, that effectively we'd be asking you to double that. Because 1%, yes?
Income is after the tax and everything, or?
So I get this question a lot about net and gross, and I really, it doesn't matter to me. I just want people to give more, to be more generous. So the reality is in Canada that there is a taxable benefit to making a charitable contribution, but I don't want that to be the motivator for you to make a gift. So the fact is that there's a taxable benefit isn't something that the church put in place. It was put in place by our federal government to encourage people to be generous. It's an outcome. It's not the primary. It shouldn't be the primary motivator. But whether you give of net or gross is immaterial to me. I think it's important that you recognize the value in giving generously. And perhaps for some, it might encourage them to give a little bit more. But, you know, it's interesting. I was talking to a priest here on Thursday who's from the United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom, they have a program called Gift Aid. And in fact, through Gift Aid, what you actually end up doing is giving your the money that you would have received back actually on top of your gift. So you don't get the tax benefit. You allow the charity to get that benefit. So if you gave $1,000, typically if you're a resident of British Columbia, you're going to get about $370 back when you do your income tax. Through Gift Aid, if you were living in the UK, that $370 would actually go to the charity. So it's a very powerful way of actually increasing the amount of money that's going to charitable organizations in the United Kingdom. The average gift in the Diocese of New Westminster is $1,528. Really? So, and this is easy to calculate. You take the number of givers, you take the amount of money that's being put on the offertory plate, and that's the average figure that you get across the Diocese of New Westminster. That does not include any special collections that you may have. That does not include money that may go to building funds or what have you. And so 1528 becomes for us an indicator of what parishes who are under it can aspire for. But 1528 isn't in itself a goal or objective. It's simply an average figure. It doesn't mean this is where we want to be, but it's helpful in how we compare ourselves to one another. Certainly, we would love to have all our parishes at least at that level, but there's nothing that suggests that 1528 is actually a healthy or optimum level of giving. And in fact, in the Diocese of Toronto, we find that the average gift is about 30% lower than the optimum gift, which means we still got a lot of work to do. So our next best practice is the idea that the parish offertory equal about 2.5% of gross family incomes. Why 2.5%? Why not 10%? I have to tell you, for every time I've tried to talk to people in congregations about the idea of giving 10%, I get a lot of glazed looks, and I find that people tune me out. So quite frankly, even though I think it's a lofty goal to aspire to, it's something I think as a church that we want to remain focused on that ideal that's set out in Scripture. Initial conversations that I have with congregations about proportionate giving suggest that a gift level in this range is probably more realistic, given that the average gift in the Diocese of Toronto is 1.4% of your gross family income, and the average gift in the Diocese of New Westminster is 1.5%. So initiating that conversation with people about giving 10% is probably going to get a lot of glazed looks. Yeah, you're better than Toronto, eh? Actually, I actually believe that New West has amongst the highest giving in the country. So I think that's, yeah, yeah. So.
Why don't you say 10% is good for the gross? Like, so you're giving to other charities as well and getting that tax rate up, but that would be a bit more positive than this 2.5%.
Well, 2.5%.
That's just to the church.
Yeah, 2.5% to the church. The reason why I use the idea of 2.5% is that, again, it's through our consultations with our parishes that those parishes that had achieved proportionate giving of at least 2.5% were seeing the robustness in ministry and the ability to move forward and engage in their community in a significant way. I don't suggest that 2.5 is the minimum in which parishes should aspire to. I mean, maximum, sorry. That's not what I'm saying. I'm simply saying is that as a best practice, our healthiest parishes have proportionate giving of at least 2.5%. So in New Westminster, that means you've got to move people from 1.5 to 2.5. So you want to see people give an extra 1%. And I titled actually my presentation to the clergy, The Power of 1%. So if we can move in that direction, we'll have a lot more health in our congregation. So don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting in any way that simply be the maximum level in which we should aspire to.
So now I think I just got the meaning of that. 2.5% of the family's gross.
Yes, yeah. So if you want a good metaphor, it's an hour's pay. If you can give an hour's pay to the church each week, that's going to have a significant impact and long-term benefit in the life and ministry of our parishes.
How would you know what the gross family income is in your parish?
The way I got the gross family income for your diocese was a little bit of digging and extrapolation. I went to the Government of Canada's website, and I was able to find out what is the gross family income for what they call Census Metropolitan Vancouver. And it's essentially an area that stretches out as far as Chilliwack and includes all the rest of the Lower Mainland. So I guess it's going to miss some communities that are part of your diocese, and it probably doesn't include areas to the north, but it's an approximation. I can never get an exact because we don't meddle into people's personal affairs to the point where we ask them what their family income is. Some denominations do that. We typically don't. So it's a best guess that we use to come up with that figure. I use that same sort of methodology wherever I go. And how do I do it for your parishes? Again, I try and do it by neighborhoods. So in the city of Toronto, they have demographic data for the city that the city provides. And I use that to come up with an approximation for neighborhoods. Again, it's not an exact science because nowadays not everybody lives in the same neighborhood as the church. Many people travel from afar to their parish. but it's a program. It's a way of trying to come up with some sort of comparative data as best we can with the resources that we have. We know it's not exact, but we think it's at least fair because we try and use the same methodology for everybody.